Hello and welcome to the Starting Five, the show where I choose my top five in various subjects and then ask my guests to let me know if I chose the right things or if I'm way out of line. Today I am joined by Ryn Gately and Abby Haines, and today our topic is top 5 video game franchises of all time. So let's just start off with the list. My number 5 video game franchise is going to be Battlefield. So you might be a little bit confused. Hey, where's Call of Duty? Battlefield, a little bit less popular than Call of Duty. But for me, if we're thinking about franchises, it's every single release that they've had. How good is the collective releases? And also, to me, Battlefield is better than Call of Duty because it's got large-scale battles. It's much more cinematic than any other video game. There's vehicles in it. You got planes, helicopters. The environment is destructible. You can really have a unique game every single time. And Call of Duty and other first-person shooters kind of just feel repetitive every single time you play them. I also believe that it's a little bit more team-based than Call of Duty, which is kind of fun when you're playing with your teammates and you're communicating about what point to push, where to go. It's a very fun experience, a little more team-based than Call of Duty, which makes it my favorite first-person shooter. So what do you think, Ryn? Battlefield.
I have to say, I'm really happy with the fact that you went for Battlefield over Call of Duty for a lot of the same reasons that you mentioned. But also the fact that Call of Duty games always feel very samey. It feels like every installment of Call of Duty, you're just kind of replaying the same game with a slightly different story. But with Battlefield, it's really interesting because even though I didn't get to play much of it as a kid, that team aspect of it is really important to it. And I think that that really genuinely brings out a lot of very interesting interactions that you can have with the game and kind of get into it. And there's a lot more strategy to it, too. The fact that it's a much larger scale map as you said, makes it a lot more cinematic. So I like that pick.
Yeah, more cinematic and also the team aspect. Abby, what do you think about Battlefield? Would you think maybe Call of Duty should be on here instead?
Well, I'm going to be honest, I've never played Battlefield. I have played Call of Duty before, but I think you bring up great points. I'd be open to try it now with your points, so yeah, I think it's good.
All right, move on to my 4th video game franchise of all time. This one's everybody knows, Pokemon. So, can't go wrong with Pokemon, lots of nostalgia there, but to me it's more than just nostalgia. I think Pokemon really, about 40 years ago, they found the perfect game design, and they've stuck with it, and it doesn't feel repetitive, but it is the same thing over and over again, and it's got that same feel. They are probably one of the most iconic video game franchises to ever exist. I mean, they've got the highest grossing media franchise of all time when you include the card game, Pokemon Go, and all the video games. And also, for me, it's very nostalgic because it's one of the very first video games I ever played. I believe it was Fire Red, maybe, when I was just like 8 years old. I have a lot of memories playing Pokemon, and it was very immersive at the time. Got lost in the world, loved all the characters, and the new characters that come out with every single game. Just makes it very exciting. Let's see, what do you think about that, Ryn?
You know, I personally am a Pokemon connoisseur. I love this franchise very much, and I have to agree with you on that. But I do have to say that I disagree a little bit where you say it's not very repetitive, especially in some of the more recent mainline games such as Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. It started to feel a lot more repetitive. It started to feel a lot more kind of bogged down by just trying to make a simple game rather than actually bringing in a lot of the story elements that were in a lot of the older games, stuff like that. I think that they've seen a big high very recently with the release of Pokemon Legends EA. They're kind of bringing in a lot more of that story, a lot more of the lore implications with the game, and a lot more just really interesting Pokemon in the games that kind of just add to the design and the characters. But I do think that there is no world where that can be on the list. But I like where it's placed, where it's not 100% at the top.
Yeah, I agree. There's some games I loved. Obviously, the older ones that I grew up with, definitely some of my favorite video games ever, but I agree. Once they moved to the DS and 3DS, those Pokemon games got a little bit repetitive for sure, but I think there is always a new aspect to all of them. There's always a new region that you're going to. There's always new Pokemon. I think that always makes it entertaining for me, but I understand where you're coming from with that. What do you think, Abby? Pokemon, number 4.
I 100% agree with you. It's super nostalgic. I remember playing on my Game Boy when I was little. trading cards with my brother. I feel that every kid goes through a Pokemon phase, and I think as we get older, it's switching from Game Boy to the Switch. It's just beginning to get more popular again.
Absolutely. All right, let's move it on to number 3, Assassin's Creed. This might be a little bit of a shocker for y'all. It's not the most popular list or game on this list, but for me, as someone who loves history and loves stealth games, this is the perfect game franchise. And I should have mentioned it with Battlefield. I love that there's always different wars and different time periods you go into. And with Assassin's Creed, it's that to another level. You've got the Renaissance in Italy, you got ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, the Viking Age, the Pirate Age. You got so many different historical time periods where you're an assassin, and not just the stories are amazing, but there's also a good aspect of free roam in those games. You get to choose what you want to do. And overall, those games are just, they kind of revolutionize stealth games and the combat within stealth games. To me, it feels very rewarding when you actually sneak up on someone and get a kill. It's exciting because, you know, you get rewarded, and it's a hard game to actually be stealthy in. It's definitely a cinematic game in the same way as Battlefield, and you get very immersed in it. The stories get very immersive, and they draw you right in. You can't stop playing them. Ren, what do you think about Assassin's Creed?
Now, while Assassin's Creed 3 is by far one of my favorite games of all time, I love it set in revolutionary Boston, a very, very well-designed game. I don't know if I can give the whole series that same sort of just like recognition of being on a list like this, where Assassin's Creed is a very good franchise with a lot of very good games, but I don't know if it has that same sort of like brand notoriety as a lot of other games. And so I think that that's something to keep in mind. Also, it's kind of been a little bit on a slow downturn recently, where there hasn't been as much interest in stuff like anything past Assassin's Creed Black Flag, basically. And so I'm interested to see where it goes, but I don't know if I'd put it in 3.
That's a fair point. I was having a hard time choosing where to put it because there are definitely some titles in this franchise that I didn't love, but still at the same time, even the ones I don't love, I still play them because it's Assassin's Creed, and for me that's like one of the best games, or kind of genres of games for me. And I think even the ones that aren't the greatest, they still kind of have this certain charm to them, just being an Assassin's Creed game. Abby, do you have anything to say about Assassin's Creed?
I'm going to be completely transparent. I've never heard of it in my life, so I'm going to disagree with you and not want that as number 3.
That's fair. That's fair. If you haven't heard of it, not enough influence, maybe it's not the greatest. All right. We'll move on to number 2, though. You've definitely heard of these games. I got all of the Lego games ever, okay? They are some of my favorite games ever. Talking about nostalgia with Pokemon, I mean, I remember playing these games with my mom when I got out of school, playing Batman, Lego Star Wars, Lego Indiana Jones, Lego Harry Potter. I mean, there's just so many IPs and stories that we love that you get to play in Legos. And who doesn't love Legos? Who doesn't love those movies? Not just the nostalgia, but similar to Pokemon, I think these are very well-designed games. I mean, they're platformers with puzzle solving. I mean, they've got humor, and then also the storylines. They mix that humor in pretty well, seamlessly. And over the past few years, unlike these other games, I feel like Lego games have really only gotten better. They've incorporated free roam in some of the games. They've meshed games together to have more characters. Overall, it's just a timeless game. Anybody can pick up a Lego game, have fun, enjoy it, know what's going on. And to me, it's a joyful game. It makes me happy to play and think about. What do you think, Ren?
I gotta argue with you on this one, because I don't
Really?
know if we can set Lego games as their own franchise, considering they cover so many different franchises. I mean, you have Lego games. I mean, of course, they started with a lot of the Indiana Jones and the Star Wars games in the late 90s, early 2000s. And they did have a little bit of kind of their own thing going on there. But outside of maybe like Lego City on the 3DS, everything is based off a different IP. And so I'm not quite sure if we can call that its own franchise when you're looking at so many other franchises that have already been kind of put together here, being made into a different thing. I love the Lego games. I will put it out there that they are very fun, but I don't know if they really fit. I don't know if they fit the topic.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Abby? Do you think that's a video game franchise, or do you think it's multiple franchises that just happen to have Lego games?
I do think it's multiple franchises. When I was coming up with a list of franchises, I did not think of the Lego as like a whole.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one.
I will counter with that, and I think it is a franchise because they're all the same sort of games. Just because they have different IPs, they are still always the same similar platformers going through those stories. So I would ask you, Rin, would you consider the Lego Star Wars games in the Star Wars franchise? Would you consider the Lego Indiana Jones games in the Indiana Jones franchise? Or do they not also count in those?
Now, this is kind of where it gets a little bogged down in the weeds here, because what I immediately went to thinking was Lego Dimensions on the Wii U.
That's a great game.
It is a great game, but it's this massive crossover game between so many different franchises. But it carries the Lego theme, but it still is just all of these different franchises. And I guess it comes down to sort of, is Super Smash Bros. Its own franchise? I mean, it carries a bunch of other franchises. And you know, you might have moved me on that one, because I do think that something like Lego Dimensions would fit as its own game. Something like the original Star Wars trilogy on the PlayStation and the PS2, they might be a little more on the fringe, especially when you have stuff in that era that was kind of more Lego serious, like Lego Island, for example, on PC. But when you have them that are just specifically based on one single IP, I think that's where it kind of gets iffy. And when you take out stuff like Lego Star Wars and like the Lego Jurassic Parks, for example, or the Lego Indiana Jones, then I feel like you're left with not much else outside of a couple good games.
That's a very fair point. I respect that. And hey, that's what you two are here to do, is keep me in line with my list. So maybe I'll have to revisit that. Maybe it's not a franchise. But this is definitely a franchise. At my number one, I've got maybe the most iconic game to ever be on Xbox, Halo. So me as well, Halo is my favorite first-person shooter over Battlefield. It's a little bit more slow-paced than Battlefield, but to me, it's the story that really puts Halo at the top. Every single game, from Halo Reach to Halo 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe not Halo 5, but all the other Halos have amazing stories. They immerse you. You don't want to put them down. And then, outside of the story, the multiplayer in Halo games are amazing. I mean, to be honest, Halo really redefined first-person shooters as a whole. I mean, there wasn't many first-person shooters on consoles for a while until the first Halo came out on Xbox. Completely changed that. Also, really revolutionized multiplayer first-person shooters as a whole. It became just kind of a whole cultural phenomenon. Halo was the #1 game for the longest time. They've sold over 81 million copies, which has resulted in over $6 billion in profits for just Halo for Microsoft. And it's really what made Xbox big, I feel like. So when you're just thinking about like influence as well as the story, the multiplayer, the gameplay itself, I can't put anything above Halo. What do you think, Rin?
Now, I do think that Halo is a very influential game. I agree with you on that. But I think that if you're going to say the top franchise of a first-person shooter variety with a good story, I gotta give it to something like Half-Life, or something that wasn't necessarily just Halo. As much as Halo sort of started the movement for consoles to have first-person shooters, I feel like Half-Life, and in both its forms, just really brought that out and brought that first-person shooter into such a great story-driven sort of game. And that was also released on Xbox, of course, and so you saw a lot of movement in that direction. And I feel like Halo, as good as it is and as influential as it is, I don't know if it can make the very top.
Okay. Abby, I saw you shaking your head a lot when I said Halo. What's that for?
Well, you brought up how many copies have been sold. Mm-hmm. Call of Duty has sold over 425 million copies worldwide. Also, I don't think that's #1.
What about it isn't #1?
What about it?
Yeah.
Your list is very like, everything's kind of the same besides like Lego and Pokemon, the just 3 shooter games. No,
well, I wouldn't say Assassin's Creed's a shooter game.
Oh, well, no Fortnite?
No Fortnite.
No
That's
Minecraft?
not a franchise. Minecraft's not a franchise either. There's one game in both of those franchises. I mean, you could maybe say Minecraft Dimensions or what is the story mode or Minecraft Dungeons, but I don't like those games. I like Minecraft, but that's just one game I like, so it's not a franchise. What do you think should be on here? What's your top 5? What did I miss off? Rin?
You know, I gotta say, I have a couple ideas here. One is that if you do want your top to be a Microsoft franchise, I gotta give it up for Forza. Forza Motorsport and, of course, Forza Horizon in all of its forms are just a really, really influential and incredibly well-polished racing series. And especially in the first game, they really nailed that aesthetic of sort of being at a music festival that's also a car show. And it's just such a cool environment to be in. I love every single one of those games that kind of puts you in its own little world of a different part of the world that is having the same festival, and it just evolves every single time. And seeing that as sort of another massively multiplayer and just really cool game that has a really good story mode in all of them too, and a really good ability for both single player and multiplayer stuff, I think that that franchise just works really well. And if the one thing that I am seeing here is that there's not really any interest in PlayStation games. We have a Nintendo on there, and I think you could probably argue Lego is usually connected with Nintendo the most. And we have a couple of Xbox really specific games. But I think Sony has a lot of really good franchises, especially from the 90s and 2000s, that we could definitely give something to. I think we could definitely give the Star Wars Battlefront series to it. You could give it to something like Spyro the Dragon or Crash Bandicoot if you want a platformer on there.
I almost put that on there. I grew up on the PlayStation 2, so you saying there's not PlayStation. I played a lot of these on the PlayStation. Obviously not Pokemon or Halo, but yeah, Crash Bandicoot almost made my list.
Crash Bandicoot is a wonderful series. I love that game.
Very close. Abby, anything other than Call of Duty you might add on there? I know you were talking about that earlier.
I'm saying Fortnite. There's multiple seasons, multiple game modes. I just don't get how it's not a franchise.
To me, a franchise is multiple releases over multiple years. So
Yeah.
Fortnite 1 and then Fortnite 2. Then we could say it's a franchise. I mean, they got Save the World, but that's still also the same game pretty much. What do you think, Ren? What do you think defines a franchise?
I think a franchise is really defined by just the amount of stuff that it brings along with it. So I would say that Fortnite is on the fringe. It is one game, but there's so much stuff that goes along with it. There's so much merch. There's so many different crossovers. It's a live action or updated game that you really get to see kind of a different game every few months. And so I would say that live service games are in a really weird spot. Does Genshin Impact count as a franchise? Arguably, does Minecraft count as a franchise? I would say Minecraft definitely does, but part of that might also just be because it's been around for so long.
That's fair enough.
Defining a franchise is kind of a tough thing because I think that there's so many different aspects that can go into that.
Yeah, it was tricky for me making my list, and I'm definitely going to have to do some revising after your input. You kept me in line. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all of y'all watching at home. Thank you for watching The Starting Five. I'm Calvin White.